Sup guys, Multiplier here, and let me show you something cool in Ableton. It's a feature I've just discovered, and it's called Slice to New MIDI Track. I was producing with Ralphio in Logic, and he showed me something cool, and I was like, wow, I wish I could do that in Ableton. Did a bit of investigation and figured out how to do this stuff, and it actually does a lot more than Logic in terms of how kind of advanced some of the presets are. So yeah, so let's say we got an audio clip. Drum loop is a perfect example right here. So we've got a nice and simple drum loop from one of the deadmau5 sample packs. It sounds a bit like this, just for your reference. And then what basically happens, if we slice this to a new MIDI track, it will take each drum hit from this loop and then assign each of those drum hits to its own note on the keyboard, which then allows us to kind of play out a new pattern or do something else cool with it. So yeah, first thing you want to do is make sure the clip in question is being warped. Otherwise, Ableton won't allow you to slice it to a new MIDI track. So even if you don't want to kind of warp it and stretch it or whatever, you've got to make sure warp button is at least ticked. So make sure that's on. And then you want to click the audio clip, do a right click, and then slice to new MIDI track, and then do a click. So you've got two kind of options here. So the first one is basically reasonably obvious. So create one slice per, and you've got a few options. So transient is my favorite, which basically means it will chop up the audio track according to where the transients in the audio clip are. So in the case of drum samples, you're always going to choose transient just so it pulls out each drum hit properly. Sometimes if you're chopping up like an original track to do a remix or something, to do some sampling stuff, it can be nice to choose a quarter or an eighth or a 16th note, just so you can kind of almost like do really quick edits of tracks just to come up with your own edit of it. But for most of the time, transient is going to come up with the coolest results, especially if you kind of chuck an acapella into this as well. That works out pretty good. So we're going to choose transient. And then for the slicing preset, we'll leave it as built in for now, and then we'll come on to what these are later. And these are kind of where the awesomeness comes from. Yeah, if we choose built in, that means it won't do any crazy stuff. Click OK, give it a second. And now what we have is this new track over here. And then, so we've got this kind of new, I think we'll call them instrument racks over here. So if we click this guy, we can kind of see what's going on. I think it's a drum rack, not an instrument rack. Anyway, so now each kind of hit from the original loop. So you see as I'm clicking these, it's showing you which bit of the original loop it's sampling. So if you kind of click around, you can see that it's found each hit. That was the transient setting we selected. And now it means I've got my keyboard connected. I can kind of bang out a new pattern just kind of using the notes and stuff. So whatever, you get the idea. So you can play out a new pattern or do something cool with it. But that's just like the real basics. It gets a lot cooler than that. So let's delete that and do another one. So if we, same again, slice the new MIDI track, but choose one of the other slicing presets, you can come up with some really cool shit. So each one of these slicing presets basically sticks chops it all up, just like the standard one we just did does, but processes them with some more effects, which just makes it a bit more interesting. So it's definitely worth having a play about with these, but just to give you an example, let's say, yeah, Slicer Dicer. Let's give that a go. Click OK. And then what you find is each drum hit, it's still kind of chopped up in a similar way to before, but it's kind of processed. And then you've got these cool kind of 8 macro knobs down here to kind of tweak the parameters of the effects. So yeah, I'll kind of show you the cool stuff it's done. So in this case, it's doing a kind of stuttery sort of thing, and then we can play with the pitch to kind of do some other cool stuff. Just turn it up a bit so you can actually hear it. So you can see, just having a bit of a play about with the stutter effects, you can come up with something cool, nice and easily from some original sounds, kind of jam out on your keyboard or your Ableton Push or your machine or whatever else it is, and just kind of come up with some new cool stuff. And each one of these kind of slicing presets does its own kind of bunch of effects. So it's definitely worth kind of having a look through. Some of them will require the, didn't mean to do that. Some of them will require later versions of Ableton, just so it has like the sampler instrument in, for example. But yeah, there's some really cool stuff. You can see you got some quite complicated effects going on. It's just a really nice way, if you're not feeling too kind of inspired, to kind of cut up and make your own kind of stuff. Just kind of take a bit of a drum loop or something that's got some cool sounds in it, slice it up to a new MIDI track, and choose one of these cool effect settings. Just have a play about, see what kind of cool stuff you can come up with. It's a really nice way of just kind of sampling and without doing all the annoying kind of setting up and engineering side yourself, which is pretty cool. It's also pretty cool for, although I've been using this kind of drum loop as an example, I personally think it works really well with vocals and kind of vocal samples, especially if you want to get that kind of chopped up vocally sort of vibe. So I'm just going to give you a quick example of what that might sound like. Got a pretty bad example, but you know what, fuck it, it'll do, from the Vengeance vocal sample pack.
Because his weakness is a perfect match.
Cool, so let's slice that up into some MIDI. So we're going to click it. Same again, slice the new MIDI track. I clicked warp before, by default it wasn't warped. So yeah, right click, slice the new MIDI track. So let's leave it as transient, that should be all right. And then we'll go to slicing preset. I don't know what to do, maybe. Peach Fuzz, let's see what that sounds like. Never tried that preset before. It's kind of a strange preset, but you can get how for certain audio samples and for certain kind of tracks, it might work out quite well. But yeah, it's pretty cool. That's been the kind of a not too long of a video, but yeah, just kind of giving you a taste of kind of slice to MIDI. I'm going to be experimenting around with it quite a lot myself. Yeah, super cool little feature. One of the little goodies in Ableton. And yeah, certainly the fact you can choose, I think most of the power in this that makes kind of Ableton a bit special is in all these slicing presets, just because it allows you to kind of come up with cool kind of sounds nice and easily, which is good shit. So yeah, that's something to play about with. Been Multiplier. It's been a video. Boom, done. Super serious. Right, stop record.